What's up, y'all? You're listening to the My Aggie Nation podcast. I'm Alex Miller with the Eagle, joined always by Travis Brown and Robert Cessna. Big week here in Aggie land. Texas A&M has a new football coach, Mike Elko, familiar face, and the Aggies are hoping he can take them to the promised land of college football. Guys, it's been a long weekend, and here we are. It's Tuesday, and A&M's got their guy.
I'm so tired. I
slept 11 hours last night. It was awesome.
I don't know about that. Yeah, A&M has their guy. I think it was the guy that I had them at the top of the list that they should have called first. I don't know what that process looked like anyway, but it makes sense. They didn't need a guy that comes in and builds a program from scratch because they have the roster, they have the facilities, they have the resources, as it's always been said, to compete at a really high level. They just needed the right manager, the right strategy to implement all of these players and resources. And they needed a guy with familiarity with the roster to keep some of these guys around. And for what A&M has and the trajectory that it's on player personnel wise, there might not have been a better option for this team.
I think without a doubt, as soon as everyone knew the job was open, when I went out to lunch, whatever, one of the first names everybody mentioned was Elko, because he was here for 4 years. The defense was great, so you naturally set him. But I always felt like most people were saying, like, okay, Elko's nice. Maybe they can get somebody else. And I think that's why people would always mention other names. But then, as Travis says, he didn't get any sleep because he was on the Mark Stoops watch late Saturday, and it never ended until he went out and saw the plane land with Elko. And what's funny is yesterday they talked at the welcoming back to Mike Elko that the main thing was getting it right. And I think the way A&M did it, which wasn't right, but they got the right answer because Elko looks much better than what the alternative would have been if they'd hired Mark Stoops. And that is the mind of the fans, not necessarily me or anyone else. I'm not saying that Mark Stoops couldn't have come here and won, but suddenly when the players are going, Mark Stoops? And then when they see Elko come back, knowing who he is and what he can do, they feel like they've hit a home run. Yeah,
and I think that there is, I know Aggies on social media and stuff have been up in arms because they're gleaning that people are saying, know who you are, know your place in the college football world. And I think where a lot of that comes from is just the fact that when you get a coaching search and names like Ryan Day and Dabo Sweeney get thrown out there, that's great. And they have a lot of skins on the wall. They are extremely good football coaches that have done it at a high level. But that's not necessarily what A&M needed right now. They needed a guy who would come in and be budget friendly, but they also needed a guy that knew this program, would know the roster. And this concept of the home run hire, the guy, the Brian Kelly, the Lincoln Riley, even you can argue the Jimbo Fisher to A&M, those are so rare. You look across the country and the teams that are excelling right now, almost all of them are either guys, promotions from within, guys who are coordinators, or kind of some young up-and-comers. And I think you could class Mike Elko in that category.
A&M's had a lot of home run hires. They haven't had a lot of home run results.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could say in other sports they did in Schlossnagle, for example, but that's the key. They haven't had a home run hire and a home run results since Jackie Sherrill, and most people wanted to fire him before his third years. So once again, it's hard to get the home run results, and that's what A&M, I think, has realized after 4 hires and 20 years, 25 years of whatever of not winning a conference title. You're more worried about home run results, and they think that Mike Elko can deliver home run results, and I'm not saying he will or won't, but he's got a track record that he should be able to do that. So we'll just see. But I think, Travis, what it goes back to is I've been around Bryan College Station, and every place is the same. When a new coaching vacancy comes open, everybody wants to hire their coach. Everybody's got an idea, particularly when it's football in this town and baseball. They all know, and they're, oh, man, I'll tell you who they should hire to replace Rob Childers. Oh, I'll tell you who they should hire to replace this guy. Oh, I'll tell you, they should hire to replace Jimbo Fisher. And it's their sport. Everybody loves Aggie sports, and they want to be able to say they hired the guy.
Well, they hired a guy. His name's Mike Elko. He's got a base salary of $7 million. Just looking at his key contract terms here, his postseason incentives start at $1 million if A&M makes the college football playoff, which we all know access is going to expand next year, even though the league's going to get a little tougher with the addition of OU and Texas. Could go up to $10.75 million if he meets all of his incentives, which would include winning the national championship, appearing in the SEC championship game, getting named SEC Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year, and then having good grades on the team. $11 million for a salary pool. Travis, what you kind of delved into this contract. What were some of the things that really stood out to you about this deal that, Ross talked a lot about how they wanted to do a different deal, and it's different than Jimbo's.
Yeah, Ross said at the early stages of this whole process that they're not going to hire an 8-5 coach. This isn't an 8-5 job anymore by nature of the steps they took to get Jimbo Fisher out of here. It's not an 8-5 job anymore. The expectations are higher, and so they're not going to incentivize making the Liberty Bowl. I know if you look at other contracts, you make a bowl, you get $25,000, $50,000, something. There is nothing on here that incentivizes making any kind of postseason other than an appearance in the SEC title game, which, by the way, is only $100,000. Only $100,000, but only $100,000. The rest has to do with the 12-team college football playoff. And I'm going to correct something that I didn't even say on here. We were in us talking, but it's a valid point. The presence of, we were saying, well, but, there's no New Year's Six bowls on there. Well, with the new playoff, the expanded team, those New Year's Six bowls get absorbed into the other rounds of the 12-team playoff. So that, if you want to try to compare and look at contracts, the ones that give money for going to the Peach Bowl when the Peach Bowl isn't one of the semifinals, that's going to be integrated in because those are now going to be a part of the 12-team playoff. So in that ways, there's some similarities to other contracts. Non-guaranteed, which is, I think, something everybody was expecting. There's a 75% or 80% of the base salary that he'll be paid depending on the timing in the 6-year deal. And then I think actually one of the bigger talking points, because you're talking about trying to find a candidate who's going to come here without a guaranteed contract and an incentive-based contract, is the fact that the salary pool for assistant coaches, analysts, recruiting coordinators, strength and conditioning, all of that is at $11 million, which is down from the approximately 13.7 it was under Jimbo Fisher. And he pushed back, Bjork did, on the idea that Jimbo's buyout was part of the reason why they needed to cut that pool, saying that it's just trying to run things more efficiently. But in a conversation with WFAA a week prior, when they asked where's the money for Jimbo Fisher's contract going to come, he said they're going to make reductions in the support staff in football that will help offset. So he said it both ways. I know things can change, but it is interesting that they will have $2.7 approximately $1 million less, which when you get into assistant coaches, coordinators, $2.7 isn't a lot. But when you get into the size of more people in recruiting staff, salaries that are under $60,000, that's a lot of personnel. It can be a lot of personnel.
Well, I think the bottom line is that's a starting point, and we all know that could be altered as it goes on because he signed the 6-year deal. Suddenly, if they're winning or whatever, and go, hey, I need more here. Can you do it? And if they do make the top 12, it's ironic. The 12th man, they need to make the top 12. You make the top 12, he gets the bonus. Everything is good. You do that 2 out of 3 years, you'll be getting more money because the program will be making more money. I think Ross wanted to mentally take a step back. We're not throwing money out into the Brazos River all the time. We're just not throwing money every time Jimbo goes, oh, we want to go up a week early. Let's just go. Let's not even come back to class. We'll just take. That's funny, but Jimbo had no limit. I mean, whatever he wanted, he was going to get because he was going to deliver a national championship. He didn't do it in 6 years. So now Ross and them are saying, hey, let's go back to square one. You know, if I guarantee if Elko within the next 2 years goes to college football playoff, he'll probably get some more perks. I don't think they'll go ahead and rewrite the contract. I think they've learned that, but there's ways to get people more money. You go back, why didn't A&M win at the end of R.C. Slocum's career? They didn't have the facilities. He couldn't pay his assistant coaches because everybody came in and stole his assistant coaches. Well, now A&M's got it competitive. They can pay $1 or $2 million for an offensive coordinator. So it's just taken to me a slight step back to take 2 steps forward because A&M was just pushing all things in, and they were going broke at the blackjack table every time. And Jimbo saying, "Hey, need more money. We'll win next year." Can't do it.
Well, you know, you talk about having to rewrite the contract. I think this little italicized line is really, really interesting. If Elko accomplishes any of the postseason incentives, 1 additional year will be added to the term of his agreement. You know, if you're A&M's looking to be a consistent contender in the college football playoff. You know, out of 6 years, if you make it 4 out of 6 times, you know, that's 4 additional years on your contract that you don't have to re-up it for. Like, it just takes care of itself, I guess. I think that's an interesting little caveat there.
It is proactive towards anybody. If you make the playoff, you're probably going to start maybe hearing some calls for some people if job openings happening or things like that. And not that there are that many programs out in the country that could money whip away a coach from A&M, but it's just being proactive to say, you made the playoff, we're going to give you more stability because you made the playoff, and try to head that off at the pass. Going back to the situation that Ross Bjork has brought up multiple times, and the fact that he was the one that extended Jimbo when there was another SEC West team that was maybe looking to fill a vacancy. So it's kind of putting some automatic guardrails or safety rails on that to where they're not having to renegotiate every time that they make a playoff appearance.
Yeah, I like it a lot because A&M's saying, show me the wins before I give you the money. Like Alex just pointed out, you go to the top 12, we'll give you another year since you obviously won 10, 11, or 12 games to get there. We'll give you another year. Things aren't gone bad. And if A&M makes the college football playoff, they'll be printing more money. There'll be so many T-shirts or whatever at CC Creations. So everybody will make money if Elko wins.
And if they do that more than one time, they're going to be renegotiating the contract anyway. Because this is how agents, the whole system works. They make the playoff twice in 6 years. They're gonna be renegotiating that contract in an extension that's bigger than just a year anyway. So it's nice. It works. It adds a little guardrail. We'll see if they do actually achieve this level of success, which a big if from what they've shown so far. Yeah, that makes sense.
Here's the deal: is if he does what you said, Travis. You're right. They're going to pay him. Nick Saban and Kirby Smart money and contract. But let's be honest. If he goes 8-5 with 9-4 in the next 3 or 4 years, there are going to be people clamoring for a change. I mean, that's just the way it goes, and they can do it because they haven't signed the house away to get him.
And on the flip side of that, if they do achieve this, the reason they went to this salary, the argument there, the pitch they made to the coaches is, we haven't achieved this level yet at A&M. If you believe in yourself as a head coach, you'll come take this because you'll believe you'll achieve this, because this is incentivizing winning at a level that hasn't been seen around here. So if they achieve that and they win and make this the kind of standard that the program is held to, they're going to have to renegotiate the contract, because there's no way that you can keep telling your coach, well, we're going to incentivize winning when you have been winning. So this is a great first step, because it is university friendly if this isn't the right hire. But if it is the right hire, then in however many years it takes to create a winning atmosphere around here, they're going to be renegotiating a Kirby Smart, Nick Saban type contract too.
A&M tried to pay Jimbo Fisher national chip money for the trophies he won at Florida State. He earned those. A&M paid for them, not Florida State, and he never delivered them here.
It's going to be interesting to see in the years to come when some of these bigger name jobs come open. After the Jimbo kind of set the market, and I know Ross a couple times tried to push back with the word "set the market," but Jimbo set the market in college football when that hire was made. That you can throw stupid money at a coach and
guarantee him
and pay for basically say, I'm just going to pay early for that national championship, and then it didn't show up, and then you're stuck in a situation where you're having to pay historic money to move on from that coach. And I'm sure that there's other universities around the country who first saw A&M and Jimbo Fisher and say, oh, hey, that works. And you started to see these more and more of these guaranteed contracts. Then that didn't work. So I'm curious to see how much this might reset the market to where when you do get the next big name hire or the big name job comes open, is it going to look a little bit more like this than it is going to be that trend of guaranteed money that has kind of come out since Jimbo Fisher came to A&M.
Well, like I joked, I saw online yesterday that Mississippi State, Leddy, the offensive coordinator, he had the same exact thing. Here's what we're going to pay him per year. Here's what we're going to do. And I think you're right. More IEDs and schools are gone to this because they want to be up front with the fans and donors that are paying the bills. Because once again, that's who's picking up the money.
Isn't an IED like a landmine?
Yes.
Okay.
What'd I say?
IED instead of AD.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, you know.
At least you didn't say IUD.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway. Hey, it's day 2 of the Mike Elko era. It was all the pomp and circumstance yesterday, but, they're back there getting to work. It sounds like coaching staff shuffle is already underway. They're trying to get things going. What are going to be some of the key things y'all are looking at for this A&M program here in this first few weeks? We'll say till the end of the year.
Well, I think one of the knocks that a lot of people had on Jimbo Fisher was the fact that he kept too many of his guys around for too long. If it were, and I know there's reports out there already of some movement happening, but just spitballing off the top of my head, I think guys like Damian Craig, Steve Adazio, guys that were Jimbo hires, Jimbo guys, especially Damian Craig, will probably be on the way out to get some new ideas, new thoughts, new culture in there. So there probably will be a pretty significant turnover in the coaching staff, I would imagine, save for really Elijah Robinson, who Mike Elko already said they're working to try to nail down. He was associate head coach and co-defensive coordinator. If you're going to keep him on, probably means you got your defensive coordinator.
I think they'll keep Robinson and possibly only one more. I think Elko realizes a lot of negativity surrounding Jimbo. So the coach has got to be really good to keep him. I don't even care if he's a secondary coach, a wide receiver, whatever, the last guy on the totem pole. I don't know if you keep him because I think you're better off by starting over. And we all know they can keep Robinson, maybe one more. That's it. I'm interested to see who the OC is because I feel very confident that the defense is in good hands. I would say the defense has been good the last couple of years because of what Elko did when he was here, the foundation. So I'm not worried about the defense, and I just want to see who his offensive coordinator is going to be.
I think it's going to look a lot more modern, like they said, innovative. I don't think you can get any more old school than the kind of offense that Jimbo Fisher, the very pro-style type offense that Jimbo Fisher is trying to run. And when they were talking about hiring a defensive coordinator when it was ultimately Bobby Petrino, the names that I know fans were screaming out for was the Garrett Rileys and the kinds, the up-tempo, throw the ball around, the next progression of the air raid kind of per se type offense. I would be shocked if it wasn't that kind of guy, a younger guy with an innovative offensive mind.
And I think you're looking at a great situation because I liked the Petrino hire, but I knew he was coming in a bad situation because it might only last 1 year, which it did. And I think Jimbo had a rough time getting an offensive coordinator because people wondered if he's going to be here much longer. I think with the new outlook of Elko, you're looking at at least 3 years of offensive coordinator if you do your job to come in, and I think it's going to be a very attractive job for anybody that he wants to go after. So once again, I'll be interested to see if he wants to go young, want to go middle age, whatever. But I think it's a great job for somebody.
Yeah, and if you look across the SEC, other than Georgia and Alabama, which is a big other than. Most of the head coaches that are being brought in are offensive minded. You look at Leddy at Mississippi State. You look at Drinkwitz at Missouri.
But I'd even say
Hugh Freeze at
Auburn.
And I'd say even Kelly came in. He was an offensive guy because their defense is so bad, but he wanted to come in and do offense. And, and LSU's come in and won with offense. Now, I'll be interested to see what he does on defense, but you're right. And Elko's got the defense of, he's got his side, so to speak, but I'll be interested.
Which, to your point yesterday, Ross was talking about defensive-minded coaches, and he goes, well, and who's the two best teams in the league? He didn't say them, but he kind of goes, and everybody knows he's talking about Georgia and Alabama. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely curious to see how much of the roster will be retained. I think it was telling that from the get-go, it seems optimistic A&M will be able to keep a majority of the team together, given by the fact that Elko said, yeah, I walked into the team meeting yesterday and like 50 guys gave me a hug. Like, he recruited a lot of these guys. A lot of them seemed to like him. So, can they keep the Walter Nolans and the Connor Wigmans, even the Evan Stewarts of the world? Can they keep, because we know this roster is one of the most talented rosters in the country, and that will go a long way to A&M maybe trying to do something like TCU did in Sonny Dykes' first year at 2022.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see because I feel A&M in Texas and those kind of schools, you should have a loaded roster every year, whether you got to go to the portal. I think Jimbo messed up by not getting enough help in the portal. I mean, he was a great job recruiting, but when you find holes out there, you got to plug them. And he didn't plug them in the offensive line. He tried, but he didn't plug them in at cornerback and on secondary. I think Elko will do a better job plugging the holes he needs.
To that point too, I think that there's a lot of talk about retaining this whole roster, and I think on the defensive side of the ball, that needs to be a priority. Connor Wegman needs to be a priority, but one of the critiques that Jimbo, and you look at like the Dabo Sweeney's, the guy that kind of have that a little bit of that knock that they're not innovating with the times. If you look at what Deion Sanders did, again, not my favorite case study of this, he went and said, y'all guys aren't good enough. I'm going to go get better guys. Y'all can find a new home. I'm not saying that Mike Elko is going to do that, but there's certainly some position groups in this team and certain positions that they could use they could use an upgrade. And so there might be some parts of it that they might not necessarily want to retain. And you have a coaching staff that's, you would think, going to be more willing to go and find those replacements, the plug and play guys in the transfer portal right away, mainly kind of looking at the offensive line.
One assistant that A&M probably needs to hire for sure is a special teams coordinator. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And for what it's worth, Elko's had a special teams coordinator at Duke the last 2 years, so I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. Who also coached tight ends, which is not necessarily surprising that they split those duties. But it's if there has been a weak link for A&M, especially this year, it's for sure special teams.
Yeah, I thought it down. You look at what Lane Kiffin has done with the transfer portal. He's won at the SEC with transfers from Power Fives and from smaller schools, plucking out the best players. I think once again, Elko's going to say, I'm going to recruit the best 4- and 5-star talents out there, but I think he'll do a good job evaluating and filling in the holes.
Well,
do we want to say what was the best of the Mark Stoops era before we leave? It's like, no.
The night's sleep I got after it was over.
Travis, I think Travis covered the Mark Stoops era better than anybody, at A&M.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think I'll make a plaque.
There you go.
And I was thinking, I'd actually like to have that plaque. It'll be worth some money someday. I wouldn't mind having it. Someone will play a lot at some future Aggie coaches night after A&M makes the college football playoff. How much do we get for Jimbo's national championship?
See, I think that might sell better in like circles in Austin or something like that than
somebody's going to
College
sell that. It's
Station.
going to surface.
Yeah.
Trust me. Trust me.
You think Jimbo's going to sell it? He doesn't need the money.
No, I don't. I think that'll be in a box somewhere in the attic. Well, let's kind of close it out with this because I think this is kind of an important thing to talk about. Let's grade the hire. I mean, because I think that it's an important thing to kind of look at, and I know that the true grade will come 3 years down the line or so, 4 years or whatever. But how do you think A&M fared in this coaching search?
I'll give him a B because I take some style points off how it came down. I like Elko. I would have liked Traylor for that matter. I like the hire. Now they got to go out and get a B. If they get a B or better in results, it's going to be great. But 16-9 or whatever in 2 years doesn't make it. I don't care how nice a guy is, how good he is as an defensive coordinator. Until you're a head coach in the SEC, going against Kirby Smarts of the world and Lane Kiffin's and Nick Saban's, you haven't done it. So I'll give him a B.
I'll give him a B plus. I think this was definitely the logical answer. A&M, don't blame them for maybe kicking the tires on a big hit, but this one just made too much sense not to make it happen. And I think that you've seen the response from players, from fans, that it's like, okay, this is a solid hire, but it doesn't feel like necessarily the big home run like we've talked about. Maybe where it felt like with Jimbo is like A&M's hired Jimbo, the Aggies are going to win the national championship. But I think there's this optimism that Elko, if things go the way they hope, could become an A and A plus here down the road, similar to kind of what Cease was saying.
I'm going to give them an A minus because they accomplished taking the facts circling around how they got there out. I think it's an A minus because they got what they needed. You were talking about the transfer portal. They filled that hole. They didn't, like I said earlier, they didn't need the big program builder guy. They didn't need a guy that is going to completely revamp everything that's going on. They actually needed a guy who had some relationships with this really talented roster, who had a relationship with Elijah Robinson, that had knew the ins and outs of the A&M bureaucracies and the A&M world that happens down here in College Station. And they just needed a plug-and-play guy, a guy that'll take the resources, take the talent that they have, and elevate it to another level. I think Traylor could have been that guy. They didn't need to go out and get a Ryan Day or I almost said Chip Kelly, Brian Kelly, or a Dabo Sweeney or something like that, because they didn't need. With the investment they were trying to make in this, with the contract they were trying to put out, because they're going to be paying Jimbo, and with the parameters that they set from the beginning, saying that they wanted to find their next R.C. Slocum, this is an exact hit on those parameters, and I think it's what the program needs, kind of regardless of how this moves forward. If you want to judge them on what the decision-making process was with the information that they had right now, this is an A minus. This is about as good as you can get.
All right. Well, hey, hopefully we can get some sleep and get well rested. There's plenty of things to be covering here.
I saw Jim Schlossnagel at the Buzz Williams radio show last night, and he joked at me. He said, "You gotten any sleep lately?" And I said, you know what? Since I'm talking to you, I'll say, you know what? We'll sleep after the College World Series, right? We'll wait till the summer and sleep then, because it never slows down.
Sleep
here.
on his calls to the bullpen.